for making this day happen. You will pardon my traditional behavior, for I won't present a presentation on visual, but rather oral. I would use my oral notes, and hopefully that at the end of this presentation, you have grasped an understanding of why is this day worthy celebrating. I will start from an uncomfortable place. The topic is importance of conservation of mine water management and environment on both mining sector and community. So what I did to make sure that this time is worthy spending, I chunked this topic in 4 main subjects that we are going to discuss. Number 1 is mine water management. And number 2 is environment. Number 3 is mining sector. And number 4 is community. In the first 2 parts, which is mine water management and environment, we'll look at the conservation part. And then for mining sector and community, we'll look at the impact of the conservation part. Starting from the mine water management, I would love to start my note from a very uncomfortable place. For most of you, I know that you're miners, others geologists, so you have something to do with the topic that we're discussing today. And if the mining that we are talking about is not bringing impact on the economical level of the country, the continent, and the world at its largest, then I think that we need to rethink about what we are actually doing. And my note is, we can build a sustainable economy from irreplaceable materials. And I want you to capture this on a very dangerous note. Because as we do mining, we hope that it evolves into economic stability. But remember that every single time we establish a mine to be mined, that is 10, 15, 20 years, and then the mine that we mined from the mine cannot be replaced. I don't think if you're catching me well. So my note where I'm starting from is, if you're building mining for a long-term sustainable purpose, then we need to review how are we building the mining industry to build other industries, that can help us in progression of the economy. And I think from the fact of mine water management, then we'll have to understand water on its own. Water, I will use a very simple note that most of you are familiar with. It's rivers. I don't think, if we think about the fact that this water we're drinking is the same water that flows in the river, except that it's filtered river. Pardon my language. But the reason why I'm bringing this critical point is because this water that we are talking about is not just water flowing on the ground. It's water that flows in our blood. And if you don't think about the fact that the same water needs to be taken care of, then you're talking that you don't need to take care of yourself, which I hope it's not the case today. So as we are all familiar with it, mining takes water and deposits in water. So it is a very critical concern that we should have about water from the mines. The other time we visited a mine at Muhanga, and they're very worried about the deposits that can be made into the river, which deposits in the river that deposits back to the Nile River. And those of you who have done geology and who knows more about geography, then you know how many countries feed from the Nile River. It's almost the entire continent of Africa that we are talking about. And from a point of management, it's very controversial that I'm bringing on your table that management implies absence of ownership. You hear me well? For those of you who have your notes, please, if you can take this note. If people own what they own, then management becomes secondary. The reason why we worry much about management is because we don't own things in the first place. But if you own things, then management of your own things becomes a lot more easy. I don't know if this is making sense. So the first point that we should look through is to supersede the level of management and enter the level of ownership. As African community, when you own something, then management of that thing becomes your responsibility, not something to be reminded of. And if we are to own our wealth, as we always claim it, then we will have to take a step back and look through our mines, the water flowing from the mines, and how are we making an extra effort to own that which we want to manage. In the second point comes environment part, which I think we have been raised to think in a way that it is not. If I ask you, what is environment? What is the kind of picture that you generate in your mind? What is environment? Just look through your mind and see what comes through. Do you see trees? Do you see rivers? Do you see cows? I mean, you can see all these things. But here's the first problem that we need to rethink about. Of all the pictures you are generating in your mind, can you see yourself? And if you cannot see yourself as part of the problem, then you can't be part of the solution. Environment is not what surrounds us. Environment is us. We are not part of nature. We are a part of nature. So if we're to dig into the problem of environment, then we need to revise our thinking that goes behind environment. And then we bring the substitution part into the complementary part. Talking about environment, we will have to think about the statement that most of you have now known. It's the concept of I can't breathe. How many of you know it? I can't breathe. Yes. It's a concept that has been raised so much with what happened to George Floyd, that most of you know, and came with Black Lives Matter, and what follows through, all of you know it. But my job every time I step on such a flow is to reshape your thinking about the way you think about things. And one of the things that we don't think about so much is the concept of I can't breathe. I think it's not just a statement. It's a prayer that we should pray as Africans, as Rwandans. The I can't breathe statement brings back to life the question, is the Rwandan, the African mind breathing economically? Is he breathing politically? Is he breathing spiritually? For all that we are asking for is air to breathe. Nothing else, air to breathe. So the concept of environment comes not only with the concept of preservation, but also conservation of life. And how best can we live? Come to our knees to mine what we have that they don't have. Just to put in context, whatever that they don't have that we have is supposed to be our key to the freedom. Next time I was doing the research on my own, I have a great entertainment in looking through things. And I came to realize that none of the country in Africa that has no debt to be paid to the international countries. Every single country in Africa owes a certain amount of money to these countries. To my level of disappointment, when I dig deeper, I actually found that the value of the mines and the minerals that they have extracted from our countries supersedes the debt that we owe them. Question, why do we still owe them? If what they have taken from the country is far much more greater than what we owe, why do we still owe? A mathematical problem that is simple to understand, but it goes deeper into the thinking. If you ask me corruption, I would say is when two people are talking about money that don't belong to them. We just have the wrong definitions that we have to redefine day in and day out. And I think that is one of the reasons that we are sitting here as miners and future miners to address and face the issue that we most of the time ignore. You will have to understand the problem that we have in Africa. How can you explain that Africa is rich but Africans are poor? To understand the problem, then you have to understand our living, our lifestyle. Then you will have the answer yourself. We own the mines, but production of the mine we don't own, we own. So just to put in context, they extract the raw materials to be processed, and then we buy what was ours. Now it is theirs. And many times we become proud of what we should be shameful. Just to be proud that I bought my earrings at $60,000 US. You should have bought it on 5. And then you think it's kind of civilization. But I will tell you the definition of civilization. Civilization never becomes successful until when the oppressed become part of the oppressor. So how will they achieve civilization if we who are being oppressed, we didn't become part of the oppression process? What is being part of it? Contribution. How do you contribute? Paying what is yours. We always cry about the issues of unemployment in this continent. If you look through, if we just take, we always borrow some money for certain issues. If we just take this amount, we build a factory to process our raw materials. How many more jobs can we create? How many? Many of them, 3 times if not 4, than the current jobs that we have. But I will tell you the disease that we suffer from is the disease of satisfaction of less. Because our thinking is limited to what is, we don't think what can it be. And it's a challenge to all of us to actually think about those things that we didn't give enough time to think about. Then on the last note, I'm supposed to talk about the impact of this on a community level after the mining level. Just a question, how many of you have read the constitutional law of this country? How many of you? A raise of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can see. Let me shock you. I just read it this morning myself. When I was supposed to deliver this talk, and I saw it can be part of it, then I Googled and see some of the laws. But my first time reading the constitutional law. I'm shameful to say, but at least I did. The reason why I bring this point is that we always talk about how can we affect the community and how can the community get better, and all the laws that have been put in place to make sure that our well-being is achieved. I will ease your job for now. You don't have to go and read all the laws in the constitutional law. I'm going to give you 3 laws. If you know them, you know the whole book. How many? Just 3. And you have to walk me through with this so that we can achieve it. It's 3 fingers. Show me finger number 1. Just do this. You can't fail in my class. If you fail, you are beyond teaching. Honestly. So finger number 1 is the law of self. Law of self. And the law of self has to do with an individual. How do we work on the individual progression? Individuals progress economically, they progress academically, they progress financially, they progress spiritually. The first law should be to watch after yourself as an individual. For if you watch after yourself as an individual, then we are guaranteed that we can have a family that is constructed on an individual who knows how to build himself or herself. Therefore, he or she can build the family. Therefore, the second finger is the law of family. The law of family. Family is a complicated word, but a simple word if you understand it on an individual basis. Family is a group of these individuals who walk through the first phase of self-care and then move up to form a family of self-people now regulated in a family. And if we have family who have a reflection of the self in them, then the family is better. If our families are better, then the third law emerges, which is the law of community. The law of community. Community has to